Have you ever wondered what really happens after death? What if everything we've learned about heaven, hell, and religion is just a small part of a much larger truth? In today's video, you'll learn about the amazing experience of Rebecca Monroe, a devout woman who died praying and came back with a shocking revelation. There's no religion in heaven. Get ready for one of the most detailed, moving, and life-changing accounts of the other side, with spiritual encounters, universal revelations, and a message that could change the way you see life. Like it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new stories, and comment below which city you're watching from. I'd love to hear how far this message is reaching. Now take a deep breath and come with me on this journey beyond the veil. It all started on a typical Sunday morning. I was in church, kneeling as I had been since I was a child, praying fervently for forgiveness. My head was pounding, but I thought it was just another migraine. I knelt down and closed my eyes. I felt a searing pain explode behind my eyes, and then silence. I simply stopped being there. The sound of the worshipers, the stained glass windows, the voice of the pastor, it all disappeared as if someone had turned down the volume of the world. When I opened my eyes, if they were eyes, I was standing in a place I didn't recognize, a sanctuary of white light, pulsing, alive. And for the first time in decades, I felt no guilt. None at all. "You're not dead. You're just coming home," a male voice said to my left. A man with translucent eyes was looking at me tenderly. "I'm Lior, your guide." And before I could say anything, he added, "You asked for answers. You're about to receive them." Lior reached out his hand, and as he touched it, everything around him dissolved, like ink running through water. We reappeared in a vast hall made of white stone that seemed to emit light from within. There were no symbols, no crosses, no stars, no enthroned gods, just peace. "This is the Hall of Consciousness," he said. "It is where the newly returned remember who they truly are." I was confused. I expected to hear the name of Jesus, or at least a choir of angels. Nothing, just the soft echo of an invisible melody, as if the air were singing love. Lior led me to a mirror, but the reflection wasn't my body. It was like watching a constellation move inside a human silhouette. "This is you, the real you." My thoughts were in turmoil. What about God? Where is God? "Everywhere," he replied calmly, "and inside you." "But what about salvation? Hell? Judgment?" He smiled, as if he understood every burden I had carried for so many years. "There is no judgment. Here, only learning. You don't need to be saved from anything. You came to experience, to grow, to fail, and to love." But I was raised believing that Jesus was the only way. Jesus is a teacher, a mirror, but he does not own a path, because there are no paths here. There is only the return. That's when my mind fell apart. The whole structure of right and wrong, of heaven and hell, came crashing down. There was no religion, none, not even the idea of religion. Religion is a language humans have created to try to remember home, but home is much bigger than any doctrine can contain. I felt a warmth run through my chest. It was as if an ancient weight was dissolved with a single revelation. God was never confined to a book. So, all religions are wrong? Not wrong, incomplete. Each one carries a fragment of the whole, but the love that unites everything, that is beyond words. Lior then took me to a balcony. I looked out and saw endless fields, colors that do not exist on Earth, and thousands of beings of light walking, laughing, creating. None of them wore any symbol. No one spoke of an exclusive sky. The certainty that took hold of me was as clear as the air I breathed there. Heaven does not belong to any religion, and never has. Lior led me down a winding path covered in translucent crystals that crackled softly beneath our feet. Ahead loomed a colossal construction made of what seemed like living matter, a cross, between solid light and golden wind. "The Library of Souls," he said, "where all the knowledge of the multiverse is recorded." When we walked in, my heart raced. Rows and rows of books, but no paper. Each book seemed to pulse with energy, as if it were breathing. They weren't read, they were felt. You just had to touch them, and the story was absorbed straight into your soul. "Do you want to understand how you got here?" asked Lior. I nodded, still in a state of wonder. He led me to a section with my name on it. Yes, my name, glowing gold in the air, not written anywhere. It just emanated from the bookshelf. He pulled out a volume, and as I touched it, I was sucked into my own story. I saw my birth, my choices, my pain, all under a compassionate, non-judgmental gaze. I even saw scenes I had forgotten about. But the most shocking part came later. I saw other lives. I as a peasant in the 15th century. I as an enslaved black man in the American South. I as a Tibetan child. I as an atheist. I as a devout Muslim. And in each life, a search for the divine, for meaning, for truth. It was then that I understood. No religion possesses the complete truth because each life brings only a part of it. Soma is learning. The growth of the soul occurs through the diversity of journeys. But why doesn't anyone tell us this on earth? I asked, crying without tears. Because you choose to forget before you are born. It is part of the test. Without forgetting, there would be no merit in finding the light. Lior showed me other souls arriving, each with their own guides, with attire and appearances as varied as the religions of earth. Some wore veils, others white robes, others came bare of symbols. They will see that heaven does not require a spiritual uniform, Lior said, smiling. I laughed, a liberating ancient laugh, as if all my life I had worn clothes that didn't belong to me, and finally stood naked before the truth. The divine is experience, not obedience. At that moment, I realized that what connects us is not belief, but the intention with which we live, and no religion survives intact from direct contact with the source. Lior touched my shoulder, and everything around me dissolved again. The library disappeared, and we reappeared in a field of wildflowers that stretched to the horizon. The breeze smelled like childhood, and the light seemed to embrace my soul. Then, without warning, he appeared, Jesus. But not as I had imagined him, not as in the paintings, no crown of thorns, no cross, no blood. He wore a white robe with a golden belt, sandals that seemed to be made of light, and around his face, there was so much luminosity that I could barely make out his features, but I recognized him instantly. It was like meeting someone I had always known but had forgotten. Before I could say a word, he spoke, but not with his mouth. It was as if his voice arose within me. You were always with me, even when I thought I was alone. I fell to my knees, choked by an emotion that could not be put into words. Forgive me for having made such a mistake. He came closer, touched my head, and replied, You didn't make a mistake, you learned. That dismantled centuries of guilt. Centuries because I realized it wasn't just mine, it was ancestral, inherited, imposed. Jesus, what about those who don't believe in you? I asked, my heart aching. I did not come to found a religion, he replied. I came to remind you that love is the only path that matters. A sacred silence fell between us. And then he added, Many will use my name to dominate, but I am freedom, not dogma. The words entered me as if they rekindled a truth that I had always known, but never had the courage to accept. Jesus was not the property of Christianity. He was a master of light, and he did not walk alone. Other consciousnesses of immense light manifested themselves around me. Buddha, a dark-skinned elder with golden eyes, a woman wrapped in blue veils that I recognized as a face of the Divine Mother. They were in harmony. They did not argue. They did not preach. They were there as brothers, not as competitors. All religions are attempts to remember what you already know. But as long as you fight over which is true, You will forget the only truth, that you are one. Jesus looked at me one last time and said, "You came to remind the world of this, not with words, but with presence." And then he was gone, like lightning dissolving into the mist. I cried, not from pain but from relief, because in that moment I knew, with absolute certainty, that there is no religion in heaven, only consciousness, love, and return. After meeting Jesus, Lior took me to a building that looked like it was made of liquid glass. Its walls changed, color as the light passed through them, sometimes blue, sometimes gold, sometimes completely transparent. Above the entrance, an inscription vibrated in a language I never learned but understood immediately. Here are the stories you have already lived. When we entered, a circle of chairs floated above a floor made of mist. In the center, a platform slowly rotated. As soon as Lior snapped his fingers, the platform lit up and an image began to form. It was me, but not the me that speaks to you now. It was a child in a village that no longer existed, in a time that my current body never lived. I saw my small hands carrying water in clay pots. My name was Amina. I was an orphan girl in a forgotten corner of the world, and yet, I smiled. I was loved. I saw scenes of my death too, peaceful, sleeping under a sky of stars. The platform turned again. Now I was a man. I traded fabrics in a Persian market. I found myself in love, then betrayed, then enlightened. And in all those lives, there was one constant, the longing for something greater, for a home that I didn't know how to name. When I saw myself as a gray-haired woman in a Siberian hut, I understood. My soul had worn countless forms, spoken dozens of languages, believed in many gods, and was none of these things. You are pure consciousness, Rebecca. Form changes. Content grows. Lior explained to me that before each life, I chose the topics I wanted to learn: compassion, resilience, forgiveness, truth. And that many times I chose to live under a certain religion precisely because overcome it, not to imprison myself in it. Some souls come into the world to experience the limits of faith, and then break through them. I saw then that many of my current pains came from patterns that had been repeating themselves for centuries, fears that were not just mine, guilts that had been present for lives, and in that instant everything began to fall apart, as if my soul were cleansing itself layer by layer, memory by memory. You are remembering, and remembering is the beginning of liberation, Lior whispered. When I walked out of that room, I was never the same. Knowing that I had been everything, poor, rich, holy, sinful, male, female, believer, skeptic, dissolved the need to define myself by any of those things, because in the end, none of these identities survive on the other side. Only what you learned from them. We passed through a golden arch that vibrated as if it had a heart of its own. As we passed through it, we entered a circular hall with a translucent ceiling. Above us, a starry sky moved like a dance. In the center, a table, made of living stone, yes, alive. It breathed as often as my heart beat. "This is the room of choice," Lior said. "This is where we decide how we will return." Before I could protest, because honestly I didn't want to go back, he raised his hand. 2 scrolls appeared, floating in front of me, wrapped in ribbons of different colors, one blue, the other violet. "These are the plans you wrote yourself before you were born. What you chose to learn, overcome, and teach." As I touched the blue ribbon, glimpses invaded my mind. I saw my current birth, the traumas I have faced, the people I have loved and lost. I even saw encounters that had not yet happened, moments that he would still live if you chose to return. On the earthly plane, time is linear. Here it is spiral. Everything happens now, Lior explained. I sat at the table speechless. Part of me wanted to run away. The other part, I was fascinated. And then came the most shocking revelation. No one forced me to incarnate, I asked. Yes, I asked to be born into the religion that shaped me. I asked to know the fear of God. I asked to one day break the cycle and awaken. Because according to Leor, the more a soul grows, the more it wants to test its own light on difficult terrain. Like Earth. But what about the people who suffer horrible things? Did they choose this too? I asked, outraged. Suffering is never imposed, he replied gently. But there are souls so brave that they choose hard experiences to accelerate their growth, or to help others awaken through their example. I remained silent. I began to realize the immensity of it all. Earth was not a punishment. It was a school. Perhaps the most challenging one. And each of us, before being born, knew exactly what he was doing. In that room, no one spoke of heaven or hell. There were no threats, only proposals, themes, lessons, and total freedom to accept or refuse. The divine did not impose. It only invited. It was then that Leor said something I will never forget. You are not a sinner trying to be good. You are a great soul experimenting with limits to rediscover your power. And in that moment, I knew returning would be part of my next step. But now, with my eyes open and my heart awakened to an unshakable truth, spirituality begins where religion ends. Leor led me into a structure that looked like a temple, but unlike anything I had ever seen. There were no images of saints, no familiar symbols, no thrones or pulpits. It was a spherical space, enveloped in a soft amber glow, where the very air seemed to pulse with ancient wisdom. This is the hall of belief, he said, where religions are born and die. In the center, a sphere floated, rotating slowly. With each rotation, it formed distinct images. First, a crucifix, then a Star of David, then the symbol, the Islamic moon, Celtic spirals, indigenous feathers, Buddhist mandalas. Every sacred emblem that humanity has ever conceived paraded before me. These are all attempts, Leor explained. Beautiful attempts, but incomplete. They are maps, but none of them are the territory. I felt a tightness in my chest. So, are all these religions wrong? Not wrong, just limited. And then he showed me something even deeper. Kyaki, the floor of the temple, thousands of people from different eras and cultures were sitting in prayer. Some were kneeling, others with their hands raised, others dancing or in absolute silence. All were seeking the same thing, God. But when I looked closer, they were all praying to themselves. Yes, to the light within themselves. Do you see now? Leor whispered. It was never about which religion. It's always been about who is looking for. Faith doesn't need a label, it needs intention. At that moment, the sphere dissolved into light and was absorbed by each of those devotees. They rose up, now luminous, and walked together without separations, without dogmas, like a single family that finally recognizes each other. I cried. For the beauty, for the truth, for the time I wasted fearing that God would reject me just because my faith wasn't perfect. And what about those who never believed in anything, I asked. They are here too, he said, because love does not require faith, only openness. It was there that I understood the deeper reason for my NDE. Show that heaven does not recognize religions. It only recognizes vibration. The vibration of love, compassion, and sincere surrender. That is what resonates here as a universal language. It doesn't matter if it comes from a Christian, a Muslim, a pagan, or a skeptic. And as if all this wasn't enough of a revelation, Leor turned to me and said, "Do you want to see what's beyond even that?" I took a deep breath. I was about to enter territories no scripture had ever described. Leor reached out his hand, and with a simple touch to my chest, my body dissolved into pure consciousness. There was no more ground, no more sky, no more room, no more form. I was a point of light, floating in an infinite ocean of living energy. Suddenly, everything expanded, I have seen planets that never existed through our telescopes, civilizations that follow no earthly calendar, life forms that did not have bodies like ours, some made of sound alone, some of liquid light, some of pure thought. You are seeing the multiverse now, Leor explained, without needing words. Creation did not begin on Earth, and it does not end in heaven. There I realized something that took my breath away. God was not a central figure on a throne. He was the living web itself that interconnected everything. God did not rule the universe. God arath a universe. He breathed through every star, every soul, every atom. He was not someone looking down from above. He was the looking itself happening through everything. I felt beings communicating with me without language. An entity transmitted to me. The love you know is just a foretaste of what we are. I then realized that many religions, when trying to describe heaven, actually have only scratched the surface of what lies beyond, and not out of malice, but out of human limitation. No one there talked about sin. No one talked about being saved. There were no punishments, no medals, just an ocean of constant evolution where each soul chooses its own paths, its own missions, its own life cycles on dozens, hundreds of different planets. And why don't they tell us this on Earth? I asked, astonished. Because the veil of forgetfulness is part of the game. If they had known from the beginning, there would have been no merit in awakening. Then I saw people I knew, relatives, friends, in previous versions of themselves, past lives, parallel lives, as if time were actually a huge spiral, not a straight line. Leor revealed to me, even the concept of heaven is symbolic. Heaven is just one of the first stations. There are infinite dimensions above this one, and you are made to explore them. At that moment, something inside me clicked. Not a belief, but an unquestionable certainty. Real spirituality is much greater than any religion, and love is the most advanced technology in the cosmos. I felt my journey was reaching its climax, and soon, a familiar presence would call me back. As I floated in this state of pure consciousness, I felt a gentle force pulling me into a more intimate, almost personal place. It was as if the entire universe fell silent so that a single encounter could take place. And then, I saw it. My mom. She had passed away when I was only 15 years old. I never fully got over her passing. For a long time, I wondered if she was at peace, if she forgave me, if she knew how much I missed her. Now she was there, but not as I remembered. Sick, frail, tired. She was radiant. Her face was pure light. And yet, I recognized her look. She wrapped me in an armless embrace, a fusion of energies, and there, in that materialist touch, all my fears died. My daughter, there is nothing to forgive. Life on Earth is just a chapter, and you lived it with courage. I cried. I felt the child inside me, the one who blamed herself for not saying "I love you" on the last day, finally heal. Beside her, I saw other faces. My grandfather, a childhood friend who left too soon. They were all there as if they knew exactly what my heart needed to understand. No one is lost. No one disappears. Separation is an illusion of the body. My mother showed me a flower of light. It grew and transformed with every positive thought I had while I was alive. It was as if each act of love created beauty on the other side. And then she said, "The only true religion is the love you leave behind." At that moment I realized that everything we had been taught about eternal punishment, unforgivable sins, and exclusive salvation, it was a distortion, an attempt to control the sacred. My mother showed me my life like a movie. Not just the big moments, but the little ones. A coffee shared with a grieving friend, a note I left for a coworker, a hug on a random day. And in each of these scenes, there was light, so much light. "These are the acts that shape the soul," she said. I felt my mission was almost complete. Leor reappeared, and this time his gaze was different. serious, compassionate, and firm. You will come back, Rebecca. Everything in me resisted, but something greater within me knew. It was time to return to fulfill what I had promised, to share what I had seen, what I had felt, what I had been shown. Why there is no hell awaiting the wanderers, nor heaven reserved for the elect. There is only the return home. And home is made of love. The moment has arrived. Everything around me began to dissolve again, as if I were being sucked back in by a force that brooked no resistance. It was not aggressive. It was steady, inevitable. I didn't want to go. But something inside me, an invisible thread connected to Earth's time, was beginning to reactivate. I looked at Lior one last time. Will they believe me? I asked, my voice breaking. Some yes, others no. But it is not your job to convince. It is to remember. My mother came closer, touched my forehead, and said, "Take the vibration of this place with you. Even if words fail, your gaze will tell the truth." Then Jesus came. No fanfare, no trumpets, just presence, pure, absolute, undeniable. He approached me with a look that overflowed with understanding. "You already understand, my daughter. Heaven has no name. It has no owner. It has no religion." And then, like silent thunder, his words echoed within me, like a final seal branded on the heart. Tell them that they don't need to earn God's love. They are already made by Him. At that moment, everything went white. My eyes flew open. The high-pitched sound of machines, people screaming, a nurse slapping my face. I was back in the hospital, in the body, in the pain, in the gravity. But something was profoundly different. The moina fear of death was gone. So was the guilt. I felt clean, as if I had come through the ages and been reborn with a new mission, to be a voice for what is not taught in temples. In the months that followed, I tried to fit in again. I went to church. I prayed as I had before. But everything had changed. Those pews, those rituals, those words. They seemed small compared to what I had experienced. Not because they were fake, but because they were shadows of the sun. Today, when someone asks me, "What do you believe in?" I smile. Not because I don't have faith, but because my faith no longer fits into a doctrine. I believe in the love that pulses in everything, in the greater plan that unites every soul, in the freedom of being children of a source that does not demand worship, but expression. And whenever I doubt, I close my eyes and go back, even if just for a few seconds, to that field of flowers where Jesus told me, "You don't have to follow the right path, you and the way." That's the message I carry. And as simple as it may seem, she changes everything. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.